Hello. Hello, and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal Laugh at Man United show. It's been a long summer. It's been a long summer. It's been a lot of talking. It's been a lot of words. It's been a lot of, what phase are you in? Oh, sometimes, the reasons why we miss this sport are nothing to do with your own club. They're nothing to do with us. They're nothing. It doesn't mean anything. But, it really, really, really can bring such joy without you even having to worry about what your own team are doing. It's quite a gift being a football fan sometimes. It really is quite a gift. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate you being here. It's a big day in the season, of course. It's Champions League draw day for the league phase of the competition. Of course, we'll talk about that in more detail later. And, of course, the draw in full in tomorrow morning's 8 a.m. show. But good morning to you all. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. Samuel, good morning to you. We've got James in the chat box. We've got Kirill and Matthew. We've got MK7. We've got Oslo. We've got Cheech and TG. We've got Colin and Valor and Paul. We've got Claire, we've got Huey, we've got Vivian and Evan and Warsaw Gooner as well. We've got John, we've got Jerome, and plenty more of you guys and girls in the chat box as well. Thank you so much, as always, for you all tuning in. It is greatly appreciated, and thank you for doing so. So yes, thank you so much for listening. But let's not waste any more time. I mean, if you want to drop a like on the video, I don't think there's ever been more of a morning to want to drop a like on the video. We try and reach 1,000 likes every single day on the channel. It's always a great mission of ours to try and do so. So if you could help us out by trying to do so, that would be brilliant. So thank you to all of you that have already dropped a like on the video as well. It is greatly appreciated for you doing that. So yeah, I agree with this comment. Sensational. I was at football training last night, and obviously wasn't watching the start of the game, and then we went to the pub afterwards, and it wasn't even on. It was kind of, we were just having conversations. All of a sudden my phone just started buzzing, just like rattling away on the table. There's a couple of Man United fans in our group, and I just remember looking up at the phone and smiling and just being like, guys, Grimsby are 2-0 up. Just in this moment of pure elation and joy. And I left the pub before the end of the penalty shootout to get home for a reasonable bedtime. And just what a glorious result to get home to, and to work out, of course, that Grimsby had eliminated Man United despite a spirited comeback against the mighty Grimsby, and had been eliminated. Brian Mbeumo scored his first goal for Manchester United in the game, missing the vital penalty, hitting the crossbar at the end as well. Some brilliant clips around, Mark Goldbridge in particular, providing some great comedy and some comedic value to the watch-alongs. But it's another reason why I don't do watch-alongs. I have great respect for all the people that do. But I personally, along with the fact that I work every single Arsenal game, but I personally just couldn't put myself through that. I'd find it really difficult to do, having a camera on you all the time while you're enjoying it, in inverted quotation marks, as a supporter. Yeah. Wow. Incredible. Anyway. So the League Cup draw, of course, took place after the game, and it was revealed that Arsenal will travel away to Port Vale to play their first game in the competition in the third round. If you're wondering where that is, it's Stoke is where it is. It's kind of like between Birmingham and Manchester, slightly closer to Manchester. That's Port Vale are. My dad told me one time when I was younger when they were playing Gillingham, and I think he said something along the lines of Port Vale are the only team in the league not named after like an actual place. Like Arsenal, obviously named after Woolwich Arsenal, which is an actual place. But Port Vale, even though there's kind of like links to the name of something, Port Vale isn't apparently like named after an actual place. In essence, it's something different, which I thought was an interesting fact. And I've watched Port Vale a few times, but only in the lower leagues when they've travelled away to any of the Kent-based clubs. But certainly it's an opportunity, of course, for Arsenal to field some of their more fringe players, you'd think. But we've still got to take it relatively seriously. We've got a really strong team in terms of depth these days. There's really no excuse to play anything other than, a very competitive team. Opportunity to give the likes of Mosquera and Norgard and Max Dowman, of course, potentially, Ethan Waneri, plenty more minutes and plenty more opportunities. Maybe Hincapie by that point is in the squad as well, and we'll get an opportunity to play. We don't have much in the way of depth at centre forward, but I imagine Miko Marino or Trossard, of course, will play the role. But we've got so many players now in so many areas of the squad that there's going to be opportunities, and it's going to be intriguing to see what happens. But I should be there for the game. Going to have to travel up to Port Vale on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. The game takes place in between Arsenal's matches against Manchester City and Newcastle. It's the week commencing September 23rd. It's the week that it should be, so probably 24th or the 25th. As soon as we've got confirmation on the date of that fixture, of course, we'll let you know. But that is, that's it. And Johnny says, just letting you guys know, the area of Port Vale is in Burnslem. I live here, and it gets rowdy on a match day. Oh, there's lower league football. We love a little bit of rowdiness on a match day. It's part of the footballing heritage of this great nation. That should be a fun one. Pre-season victory for the women's team, 2-0 over West Ham United. 2 goals for Frida Maanum as we continue. Reiss Nelson getting underway with pre-season preparations and continuing this fine form into the new campaign. Lots of excitement, a lot of expectation. Olivia Smith playing as well, of course, after her record-breaking move from Liverpool in the summer. So, yes, a lot to be excited about on the women's side of things, and hopefully a really, really positive season to come with Frida Maanum continuing her strong outlay from last season, of course, as well. But into the transfer window we go next, and to the latest on Kiwior and Hincapie. Wrote a piece yesterday, kind of after all of the noise around agreements and Kiwior closing in on his move to Porto. At the time of recording, at the time of that reporting as well, it's my understanding that there's still quite a lot of obstacles in the way of these deals going through. And of course, Arsenal are kind of keen to only let Kiwior go if they can guarantee that they've got a player coming in. And so the Kiwior exit is kind of reliant upon Arsenal agreeing that deal with Bayer Leverkusen for Hincapie. They've only got 5 days left to do this. They've got today, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday, and the 5 o'clock deadline, of course, up to that point to get these major deals done. And there's still a lot going on in Arsenal's world transfer-wise that needs to happen. But there's a lot still happening regarding these two. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. I think it will happen. But I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing both of these players involved in it. But yes, talks ongoing, as I pointed out, but there are still, of course, obstacles in the way of these deals getting done. There's still agreements that need to be made, but let's wait and see what happens, and hopefully they do get done. Let's go, of course, forward and continuing with the stories that we're covering today on the show, of course, is news that Reiss Nelson could also be leaving the club this summer. Crystal Palace interested in the player. There's a figure of around £15 million that's being supposedly discussed. I can't comment on the 15 million. What I can say is that from a player perspective, Crystal Palace do indeed have an interest in the player and have done for quite some time. Fulham seem to have kind of moved off. They're looking at, I think, is it Kevin from Shakhtar and Chuck Wazy from AC Milan as well. But Palace are said to be looking at the player, but wages are thought to be something of a challenge from somebody I know is very well connected regarding Palace. And he's on around £100,000 per week, of course, too. So that makes any move for Nelson quite tricky. He probably will have to take something of a cut, if you will, regarding kind of any move, because clubs like Palace, are they going to pay him £100,000 per week? I'm not so sure. But if Arsenal can get 15 million for Nelson, who's got a year left on his deal, just 2 years left on his deal, they would have done incredibly well if they can get that money through the door for him. The worrying part of yesterday was when the squad pictures from the latest training session were released. Now, there was a lot of players missing that weren't a surprise. Ben White, Norgard, Saka, Odegaard, Havertz, Jesus. Those 6, of course, all absent and expected to be absent at this point. But the worrying absence was Leandro Trossard. There was no sign of Leandro Trossard anywhere in these images. Obviously, that we have to take it with some grain of salt, because just because he wasn't spotted in the photos doesn't mean he wasn't there. You can't go just off of the back of a photo that's been taken, but they usually are pretty good indicators in terms of like who actually was involved. And like, even though it wasn't a direct picture of Max Dowman, you could see him in the background of one of the photos, so he was there. But yeah, no sign of Leandro Trossard in this image, or any of the images, of course, that were released on the Arsenal website, courtesy, of course, of Stuart McFarlane and David Price, who are the club photographers. So, yeah, interesting. And Arteta, of course, faces the media tomorrow. I'll be at the Shopper Royalty Training Centre to hear from Mikel Arteta ahead of the game against Liverpool on Sunday. But yes, no sign of either of these two, of either of kind of the players that we talked about, the 7 that were absent, including Leandro Trossard. So there you go. I'm just so tired of all the transfers and the injuries, and at this point, I just want things to be all right for Arsenal. But it's the way of the world with Arsenal right now. But maybe we get we alleviate some of that stress with tonight's Champions League draw, and we take our minds off of injuries and transfers for an hour or so and focus in on the draw, which Arsenal, of course, could face any of these teams other than the English sides, of course. I want to confirm that now. No English teams can play another English team in the competition, but they will have to play 2 teams from either of the 2 either of the 4 pots. So 2 teams from the 4 pots. So there you go. Home and away from each pot. So in pot 1, we've got PSG, Real Madrid, Man City, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Dortmund, and Barcelona, and of course Chelsea and Liverpool. But City, Chelsea, and Liverpool. City, Chelsea, and Liverpool. We cannot play. So PSG will play 2 teams from PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern, Inter, Dortmund, and Barca. So 2 of those we will play. If it can be Dortmund and Inter, that'll probably be our best shot. Real Madrid, we know we can beat. There's a chance for a great trip in there, of course, for supporters and media alike. We are, of course, in pot 2. And in pot 2 with us are Leverkusen, Atletico Madrid, Benfica, Atalanta, Villarreal, Juve, Eintracht Frankfurt, and Club Brugge are all the teams in the second pot. So 2 of those teams, 1 home, 1 away. Pot 3, we've got, of course, joining Tottenham in that group is PSV, Ajax, Napoli, Sporting Lisbon, Olympiacos, Slavia Prague, Bodo Glimt, and Marseille. So there's a few interesting ones there. Of course, PSV are almost guaranteed to get, because we always get them. Sporting, could it be a return for Victor Gyökeres to play against his former side? You've got Bodo Glimt, of course. Arsenal played them in the Europa League recently in Norway. Very cold game to go and cover. And of course, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang plays now for Marseille. And they're in talks over a potential move for Dani Ceballos as well. So some former Arsenal influences in Marseille. I think there may be even some more there as well. Then pot 4, we get to some of the really interesting potential trips and sides. FC Copenhagen, Monaco, Galatasaray, Union Saint-Gilloise, Karabag, Athletic Club Bilbao, Newcastle, Paphos, and Kairat, who I have not heard of Kairat before, but they are Azerbaijani sides. Paphos are a Cypriot team, and of course, Karabag are a hold on, I think Karabag are the Azerbaijan side. Yes, and Kairat are a Kazakhstani side. So they are the potential options. Of course, there's some really very far trips included in those, Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan in particular. So I think Arsenal would probably want to avoid those. I wouldn't mind a trip to Cyprus. That'd be pretty cool to play Paphos in the league phase. That'd be pretty cool. But there's some other interesting teams. Galatasaray, of course, great atmosphere there in Istanbul. You've got Copenhagen as well, really great city and a great stadium where Arsenal, of course, won their Winners' Cup in 1994. So there's loads of history and narratives there as well to think about. But there you go. Yes, it would be Baku. So, indeed, Baku again. Arsenal's links with Azerbaijan. Well documented indeed. But we probably want, from a selfish point of view, a very close geographical trip, of course. And those games we played over the months of October, November, December, and January. But they're all the draws that we could potentially get. Best case scenario, I think, is probably Dortmund and I think Inter still. I still think Inter. But yeah, I honestly think we could beat any of these teams, but probably Dortmund and Inter. From pot 2, probably a home game against Utd Lose and away to, I want to say Marseille is probably the best case from pot 3. I don't know why I done it in that order. Pot 2 is probably a home tie against, I'm going to say a home tie against Villarreal or Frankfurt, and then an away trip to Club Bruges would probably be the best case scenario there. And pot 4, best case scenario, a home game against one of the Paphos, Karabag, Kairat would probably be the best case scenario for a home game. Away game, Copenhagen or Monaco, Union Saint-Gilloise. I think they would probably be. Worst case scenario for Arsenal, I think, is PSG, of course, and Bayern. I'd probably put as our worst case scenarios because the narratives that are involved around Bayern, they're very good this season as well. So probably home to PSG, away to Bayern Munich would probably be the worst case from pot 1. Worst case from pot 2 would probably be away to Atletico Madrid. And at home against, I mean, Atalanta are quite a good side. They dig in. Juve are beatable, I think. But maybe Leverkusen, but they're not particularly great this season either. I guess pot 2 is there's some teams. Everyone's very beatable in pot 2, but yeah, probably an away trip to Atletico and a home game against either one of the Italian sides, most likely. And then pot 3, worst case scenario, Napoli. Of course, very, very difficult team to play against at the Emirates. Potentially away trip that could be very difficult is something like Olympiacos or Slavia Prague. You know, these are games, or Utd Lose, of course. They're not particularly away trips that you want from a travel perspective and an environmental perspective in terms of the cold with Norway. And then pot 4, worst case scenario, is probably an away trip to one of those far kind of eastern teams. And then a home tie against, I guess, the best team in that group is Athletic Club. So probably the home tie against them. So that's probably the best and worst case scenarios. And we don't want the worst case scenario. You want the best case scenario in anything in life, particularly when you're online. You always want to be in the best case scenario. And the best case scenario for a VPN service, for example, just off the top of my head, is, of course, NordVPN. The best case scenario possible that you could wish for when you're using the internet or maybe a public Wi-Fi service, or you want to hop around the world. Maybe you're going to one of these Champions League games this season. Perhaps you're hopping away to Cyprus or Azerbaijan or Kazakhstan or some of these places where you might not be able to access the things digitally that you would typically be able to access without the use of a VPN. And there is only one choice when it comes to a VPN service, and that is NordVPN. And if you go to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2-year plan. And if you do that 2-year plan, you get 4 months extra thrown in free on top of that too. And if you're not happy with the service for whatever reason, you can get a 30-day money-back guarantee. So please do get involved. Thank you again to Nord for sponsoring and supporting the channel. Very supportive of us here at TGT Towers. So thank you for that. Let's go to part 2 of your questions and more right after this. Right, this is part 2 of today's show where we jump into the chat box, tackle some of your questions. But before I do that, talking of selfish plugs, I'm going to do the most selfish of all plugs, myself. Of course, I'm not the most savvy social media person in the world. Start off by saying that. And for a long time, I have had an Instagram page, but I have kept it very private. I usually have used that Instagram for kind of family photos, personal pictures that, I wouldn't necessarily be comfortable putting around to everybody. Nothing like that. Dirty minds. But, just family stuff, friends, family, and things like that just, sharing between people that I am just very, very close to. But having that, of course, being in a media job is a little bit counterintuitive. And it means I often have to press ignore on a lot of these very kind follow requests that I get sent, and it's getting to the point where there's a lot of them, and I'm saying no, and I feel really bad. So that's part of the reason that I'm decided to start up a separate Instagram page, which is now public facing, which is, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit excited about it because I want to share a lot of what I do. I want to share a lot of the work that I do. I want to share the world of covering Arsenal in a little bit more detail. And so the best place I can do that, beyond obviously my usual X account and talking about it on here, is on Insta. So if you want to follow my brand new Instagram account that is public facing rather than feeling rejected by me when I've pressed ignored on your request to send me on my personal account, there we go. So I'm going to post a load of photos from work, from covering Arsenal, press conferences, matches, and just life covering Arsenal. So if indeed you want to see that, you can head over to @TomCantonMedia. That's the name of the account. So you can go and, wow, okay, my phone's buzzing already. Thank you. To the name of the account and follow me over there. But yeah, sorry if I have not accepted your request on my personal account. I'm going to go through a big long and press no on all of them now. But just know you can follow me. I have left on my personal page a little in my bio, go follow this account now. So yes, no, I'm not doing, no, it's not that. It's not that type of account. No, let's behave ourselves, people. And those listening, you know exactly what people in the chat box are suggesting right now. But yes, Nando's posts for sure. Sadly, I got told that Nando's don't want to sponsor. I know, it's a sad day. It's a sad day. It's a sad day. But, it's not going to stop me from eating their chocolate cake. But no. Deary me, it's a shame. It's a shame, but it won't stop me eating there. I am still a loyal member, a loyal customer. But certainly, if you want to follow us over on Insta, that's where you can do it. And if you're in the first 1,000, this is where it really matters. If you're in the first 1,000 followers on that account, you will get the pride of being one of the first 1,000 followers on the account. Yeah, it's nearly impossible for me to do a competition. I'd love to do something where I was like, I'd send a shirt. But the ultimate thing is on Instagram, it's so global. Like sending a shirt really far away would be very difficult. But maybe we can sort a competition out at some stage for the Instagram page that is more logistically possible. So maybe that's the way through. But yeah, follow me over there, and I'll be sharing a lot of stuff from covering the club and stuff. So I look forward to that. First post, I guess, will be tomorrow at the press conference. So yeah, right. Let's jump though straight into today's chat box, shall we? And tackle some of your thoughts, questions, and feelings as well. Right. Let's go to Nick says, does Amorim survive after Manchester United's defeat to Grimsby? I think yes. I think my instinct is yes. I still think he'll stay. I don't think he is the problem. I just don't think Amorim is the issue. I think they are a terribly, terribly run club, have made some awful decisions in the transfer market, not necessarily this summer, but certainly more so in the past. I think Mbeumo and Kiwior and Šeško are good signings, and I think they will help improve them, but there is a rot there that needs to be exercised, and I just don't see that happening even in a short space of time with Amorim. Arteta finished 8th and then 8th again and then 5th. You know, it wasn't a quick turnaround. We were losing to Olympiacos in the Europa League, to Villarreal in the semi-final of the Europa League. We were losing games against Burnley at home. You know, we were losing embarrassing fixtures at the start of Arteta's tenure. Amorim, I don't think is the problem. I think he's got a much harder job, though, than Arteta had. And that's not a slight on Arteta. Arteta went to Arsenal, which is a much better run club than Man United is. Amorim, unfortunately, is in something of a absolute nightmare. I have little doubt. You know, he was linked with the Liverpool job at one point. And I think he would have done very well there. I think he would have had... I don't think it would have been far different to what Arne Slot. Maybe he wouldn't have won the league in his first season, but I think he would have been very competitive, and I think he would have produced some great football there. But that club is rotten. Man United is just it's a rotten club now, and it's so poorly run. There's so many poor decisions that are made there, and it's going to take a long, long time to kind of change things. So... yeah, I think he probably will stay, but at the end of the day, the club is the problem more than Amorim is the problem, personally. So that's the issue. Man United needs stability. They need a project. They need a long-term recovery mission of that club, and it's not going to happen if they continue to sack managers over and over and over and over and over again. Well, Ikram says, why is your body covered by a random person's shoulder? That's actually James Ollie. But it's the mix zone. That's the mix zone. And someone very kindly, without my knowledge, took a photo of me interviewing Martin Odegaard and said afterwards, I took a photo. Do you want it? And I was like, sure. Just send it my way. That's kind of you. So, yeah, but it's obviously from that angle. It's the mix. So there's like 4 or 5 journalists actually in that kind of crowd there interviewing Martin and those mix zones. I don't really do the mix zone anymore because I'm in the press conferences after the game, but it was when my former role, that's what I was doing post-match was interviewing the players. Now I'm obviously doing the presser after the game. But no, it's Martin was always very, very good to talk to, very kind with his time and never any complaints about interviewing. Some players you just know don't really want to. I mean, a lot of players don't really want to do media interviews, of course, but you can tell when some are good at interviews and some that are very uninterested, disinterested rather, in that. Let's scroll up in the chat some more. Halil says, fact is that Šeško decided to wait for 9 other outfield players to take their penalties before he stepped up. I know you were leaning towards Šeško, but in hindsight, if you could, would you prioritise him? It's difficult, isn't it? I said this before. I don't really feel like I'm going to get a great example of what Šeško could have done for Arsenal at Man United. Because I like Brian Mbeumo. I like Matheus Cunha as well. I think they would have been really good acquisitions for Arsenal also. I think they'd be much better here than they are there. I think that just is a rule for a number of clubs. Some clubs just buy players that we like and have been interested in, and they just don't do very well. They just don't. So there you go. I wanted to respond. Anthony, Tom, that's wrong. Fab has posted that we are now in direct. I don't know what I said that was wrong regarding Kiwior and Hincapie. And I never said that we were in direct talks. In fact, I reported that we are in talks. So a couple of shows, Anthony, I've noticed a comment similar to that. But the only one wrong is you, my friend. Lucas is also now been a member for a month on the channel. Only a month, but love the community and the show. Thank you, Lucas. Really appreciate you being with us. And thank you for continuing to support us on the channel, of course, as well. Samuel says, Elliot on the Arsenal Vision podcast was scathing about Amorim and Man United in the summer and predicted him getting the boots. I wasn't so sure, but before now I'm seeing the light. I think he probably will get sacked eventually, but I just don't see him being the problem. To be honest, I just don't see him being the issue. I think the club is the problem. I think any manager that goes there has got such a difficult job. I mean, if they are to sack him, they should probably bring somebody in who can steady things. Steadies the ship somewhat. Someone with pedigree, someone that not even necessarily like Champions League winning pedigree, but just somebody. I don't think they should necessarily, if they are to sack Amorim, they're not ready for a project manager. Clearly, they need someone who's a results now, steady the ship type manager that's not going to get you titles, but it's just going to get you wins, get you further up the table. Problem is, I don't really know who that is. And that's, I guess, the main challenge. If Mourinho was to leave Fenerbahce, maybe Mourinho again. But yeah, it's difficult to know. By the way, I was on with Elliot yesterday, for those that are patrons of the Arsenal Vision podcast, and he absolutely threw me under the bus by asking me what my unpopular opinion was, or my most unpopular opinion was. And yeah, it's fair to say that I've already been battered for it. And no, I'm not going to share it here. You need to go over and listen to that show if you want to hear it. Southgate's not a terrible shout. I think he would steady the ship, but I mean, I'd be delighted to see him go there, because I don't think he would change things for Man United in the long term, really, to be fair. What about the Grimsby coach says to leave? Yeah, certainly deserves it. Nuno Espirito Santo, I think, probably would be a decent option if he was to leave Forest. It wouldn't be a bad idea at all, I think, to get Nuno. He's shown to be a pragmatic manager that improves teams. I know that he went to Spurs and it didn't go particularly well, but it was Spurs. You can argue this is United, but it may be a poison chalice that sadly can never really be solved. But I guess we'll have to see and hope that it never does. Mickey says, I've seen suggestions that Arteta doesn't want Eze to be in the starting 11 at Anfield. Any truth? He hasn't picked his team yet, so don't think so, mate. Henko says, now that Spurs are in for Semenyo, should we do another hijack? Again, I don't see that happening. He signed a brand new contract. The only way that Bournemouth are going to sell is if they have the release clause activated, which is crazy money anyway, I think, for Semenyo. And Arsenal don't have that financial freedom to do that this summer. We're not going to sign another forward. I'm happy to put my neck on the line there. Unless there is a significant outgoing, or like a major opportunity for a loan, I just don't see us signing another forward. Even if the loan comes up, I'd be surprised. We don't need another forward player. We are very well stocked now. Eze coming in sorts out that issue for us. It really does. James says, Tom said we don't have any money £100 million ago. To be fair, I said 100 million. I said about 67.5 million pounds ago that we're confined by UEFA FFP. And now we're really confined, and we need to move some players on between now and the end of the window just to alleviate that stress. So we need to move some players on. Of course, the Kiwior thing was very, very key as well. And says, Tom, there was a report that we have. See, the problem is, Anthony, is that unfortunately, and you're not the only one that has done this, and I got sent this story, like loads of people in my DMs yesterday. We have £134 million of headroom. You're missing some very, very important bits of the story, though, aren't you? Now, I don't know if you're doing that intentionally, Anthony, or what, but can anybody guess what the headroom is referring to? What could it possibly be that gives us £134 million of headroom? What potential restrictions could it be that allows us to do that I have been telling you week after week after week after week that is so much more lenient than what we actually have to abide by? Can anybody work it out? I wonder. Shane indeed wins. PSR. Yeah, that's the part of the story that Anthony's not included there in that £134 million story, which is that Arsenal supposedly would still have headroom to spend and around that figure. It doesn't, of course, count the UEFA financial fair play regulations, which are very different to the Premier League's profit and sustainability regulations, and are for those teams that compete in UEFA competitions who have to abide by those laws. It is a lot more stringent. So again, it's all well and good leaving out little important bits of information when we're sharing stories, but I'll call you on it. It's fair to say. Raf says, who won't be moved on that should be Zinni and Lokonga. Do you think they will get minutes between now? I think Lokonga will go. I think Zinchenko might stay. I think at the moment he might stay. So that's kind of where I'm at on Zinni. We haven't really seen too much in the way of interest. I think Arteta has shown a willingness to use him in pre-season. I think that we will ultimately see him stay. B-Boy Gaming says, what do you think the Anfield result will be? Also, do you think that we play... Also, who do you think will play in the Champions League? I have no idea who will play in the Champions League because it's completely random. But when it comes to Anfield, I'm hopeful of a victory. I may have optimistically predicted 2-0 on the Vision, but I think Elliot's 2-1 prediction is probably more realistic. But I'm optimistic of a victory there, and I'm looking forward to the game. Chris says, if we don't sell Trossard or Martinelli, could you see a position change for Martinelli? I like Gabby for his defensive ability, so could he be an overlapping fullback? I don't think we'll see a position change for him at all. No, I think that Hincapie, of course, joining Arsenal gives them that more overlapping style of fullback, because that's the type of fullback that he is when he plays there. But he can also play left-sided centre-half. He is more traditional in his way. He plays that position. So I don't think you'll see a position change for Martinelli, no. YouTube user says, Tom, what do you think of Šeško not stepping up for any of the first 5 penalties, only coming up to take the 10th one? What mentality? We dodged a bullet. A lot's been made of this kind of not taking a penalty. I don't know if people are reading too much into it, but I mean, I read more into the fact that he wasn't willing to come to Arsenal last summer and kind of compete with Havertz. That for me is a bigger red flag than the penalty situation, but I know it's something that will be pointed out, definitely. Isaiah says, what is better, the journey or the destination to winning the major trophies once again? I mean, as long as you get to the destination, you know, that's all that matters, really. You know, we want to get there, and we don't want to just get there. We want to stay there. We want to stay in the destination of winning trophies. It's all well and good. You know, when Man United won that Carabao Cup and everyone was like, they've had a better season than Arsenal. And then I offered you, so you'd trade places, would you? You'd trade places with them? You'd trade places with them, Man United, to win that FA Cup in that season they did, or to win that Carabao Cup in the season they did? You'd swap places with them, would you? And rather be in their position as a club than us? How's that going? How's that going for you? I bet you really are. Those that would have swapped places really would have rather have been there right now. No, the point is that Arsenal's journey is always about getting to the destination. But when we get there, the journey to get to that destination will be about having established ourselves there. That's what's important. And doing it the right way, of course, as well, is also very important. James says, with Timber and Mosquera in the squad, would you sell Ben White if an offer came in? I say this because we need to start selling when we don't want to. It depends on the offer. It depends on what plans we have for that position as well, because Timber and Mosquera and Saliba are not enough on their own to cover right back and right-sided centre-half. We need 4. So at the moment, unless somebody comes in, I don't want to see anybody leave. So no, I wouldn't sell Ben White unless somebody is coming in. Gero says, not a question, but we are a joke of a club for not letting smaller teams get a win against us like Man United. We are selfish. It's just big club mentality, what Man United do. You know, if only we could be as good as Man United. And says, Tom, elaborate on the squad cost element limits clubs to spending 70% of the revenue plus a 3-year average on player sales, profits on players and managers' wages and transfers and agents' fees. I mean, what more do you want me to elaborate on that? I think you've covered it all. You know, ultimately, Arsenal not only have to abide by UEFA financial fair play regulations, which does, of course, incorporate a lot of costings regarding wages and the managerial side of things as well, but they are more strict. They still do incorporate transfers and fees and elements like that. But at the end of the day, they are more restrictive. And Arsenal, as a club, as a rule, tend to want to work more comfortably within those regulations. And they've kind of gone against the grain a little bit with that this summer. And they've pushed the boat out regarding transfers. So certainly I'm very pleased to see that. But they need to move some players on between now and Monday in order to kind of give them that breathing space once again. We've already seen clubs, of course, punished. Nottingham Forest, Chelsea have already faced punishments this summer. I mean, for Chelsea, obviously, they were in quite a fortuitous position that they were in the Club World Cup this summer and managed to kind of make that money back rather quickly. So, yeah, there you go. And that's why we're going for a loanee when it comes to Hincapie. Yes, exactly. That's why it's a loan with an obligation, because financially it would be to spend 60 million on Hincapie would be impossible for Arsenal. Halil says, don't want to spam my questions since I know you hate that, but could you share your dream home and dream away draw for the Champions League? Dream home game would be Real Madrid again at home, obviously. It'd be great to have that and to play them again at home. Away draw, I mean, Atletico Madrid. I do want to go to the Wanda Metropolitano. Spanish teams in general, and Italian teams. It would be either of any of them. Juve would be pretty cool to go to Turin, I think. So, yeah, they're the types of teams I'd be looking to see drawn for us as well. Paul says, could we play the most aggressive back four in the Premier League if we have Mosquera, Gabriel, Calafiori, and Hincapie as starters? Potentially, yeah. That'd be quite the team. I don't know how that would fit. I guess Calafiori would be right-sided centre-half and Gabriel left-side centre-half and Mosquera right-back. That'd be very aggressive. A very aggressive back four. Jerome says, Tom, who would be your dream fixture? We just for the Champions League final. I mean, the Champions League final this season, UCL final 2026, is in Budapest in the Puskás Arena in Hungary. Dream opponent in the final would be beating Tottenham there, I think. It'd be absolutely horrible to be there, to know that if you lose that game, you've given Spurs a Champions League. But to beat Spurs in a final, there aren't many things better than that as an Arsenal fan. So, yeah, I guess it would be that. Beating Spurs in a Champions League final would probably be a dream scenario. Would absolutely be wonderful. Go down in history. JC says, sorry, Tom, I missed the start of the show. Are we still in for Hincapie, and is it looking likely? You can rewind, JC. But in short, yeah, there's obstacles in the way of the deals, but the talks are ongoing to try and overcome those. I'm hopeful, I'd say. I'm hopeful, optimistic that will happen. Andy says, I can't take that risk. Heaven and hell is too much for my poor heart. Silver Arrow says, no way, man. I want Barcelona in the final. That would be my second pick. Beating Barcelona in the final would be the second choice, just because of the narrative from 2006 and the historical kind of element to that as well. So, yeah, I absolutely empathize with that choice. And I don't blame people for choosing that. I don't blame you at all for choosing that. I would definitely be up there with one of my picks. Right, that brings us to the end of today's show. As you can see on the screen still, of course, I've been very selfish today. Don't worry, I'm not going to do this all the time. Some of the time. But I am trying to push a brand new account I've set up on Instagram for a public-facing profile. Of course, I've always been public-facing on X and LinkedIn, Blue Sky, whatever. But never on Instagram until today. So as of now and over the course of the season, I'm going to share as much as I can about the life of covering Arsenal, some clips and videos and pictures. And it gives me an outlet to be a lot more short form content, I guess, and video and picture content that's not just on here. So follow me over there at Tom Canton Media, or as Sam Dean continues to call me, TC Media, which I don't need sticking. But yeah, Tom Canton Media. You can follow me over there on Instagram. And if you scan that little QR code, it will take you there. Or you can just click the link that is down in the description. Or you can just type in Tom Canton Media on Instagram's search page, and I should hopefully come up. But thank you for all of you that have already followed. Thank you for those that are going to follow. Thank you for those listening on catch up. Thank you for all of you live in the chat box. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, bright and early, to round up, of course, Arsenal's Champions League draw, which takes place at 5 o'clock UK time this afternoon, at 6 o'clock local time where the draw is taking place. Annoyingly late in the day. I wish it was kind of earlier. I used to like it when it's like midday, but now it's later in the afternoon. Guess so more people can watch it. But if you're unable to watch it and you just need to stay up to date who we're getting, we will be doing a Football.London live blog of the draw as well. So you can follow all of the action over there this afternoon also. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.